Terraria has over 5,000 items and I'm going to collect all of them. When you make a new character, there are two modes you can pick between, Classic and Journey. This is what I'm interested in. It's sort of like Terraria's creative mode. You have special powers, like a bigger pickup range, a difficulty slider and God mode, but I won't be using that one. But the main gimmick of the mode is research. Every item in the game can be researched to unlock duplication. You give up a certain number of each item to the void and voila, you now have infinite numbers of that item. Some of them are easy, some of them are harder, and some of them suck major ass. Let's begin. When you spawn into this mode, you get a slightly different collection of items. Iron tools, a finch staff, torches, rope, a magic mirror, a hook, and fledgling wings. Recall potions are no longer essential and are practically a formality. The wings are also pretty nice, although they are pretty weak and I honestly think they are more useful for negating fall damage. The beginning of the playthrough is the usual. Cut trees, build house, dig. For now I have adjusted the enemy difficulty to expert. This is one of the many powers that comes from this mode. You might be wondering what the rest do, but we will put a pin in that and return later to discuss which ones are fair game and which are not. For now, this playthrough is relatively normal, except for duplication. During my caving adventures, I find my first life crystal. These are interesting because you need 10 of them to duplicate and 20 to reach max health. I realise now that I could have just used all 20 and gone back to find 10 more later, because I absolutely did run into at least 10 more during the playthrough, but I decided to research it anyway, so more deaths for me. At least I won't have to deal with the goblin army for a while. I also managed to find a mushroom cave with a house. The house itself is nice, but there is one very important treasure inside, a painting. There are a lot of these paintings, and I will need to make sure I pick up every single one that I find. Anyway, here's me dying to a dead man's chest, from poison damage from a dart trap I missed. And here's me literally 2 minutes later picking up the final life crystal I needed to avoid that death. I then take some time to smash a couple of shadow orbs for their drops, grabbing the guaranteed musket along the way. The ranger class is much better off in this mode, due to the fact that you can infinitely dupe as many bullets and arrows as you want, without being bound by the amount of money or crafting supplies you have. This is hugely beneficial in the early game, although I can pretty easily dupe money anyway. My first goblin army spawns not long after. Since I have pretty shitty armor, I decided to use the very noble strategy of hiding on my roof and shooting at them in a place they can't reach me. And finally, only after a couple of deaths, the goblin army is down. The arms dealer moves in not long after, and I can use the mini shark, which is extremely powerful for this part of the game, but thanks to my unlimited stash of money, it's no bother to buy. All I need to do now before taking on a bunch of bosses is to get some decent armor. On one of my adventures, I find this cool living tree that leads directly into the dungeon, but I can't exactly go down there yet, or I'll die. Now that the nurse and the arms dealer have moved in, I spent some time making a desert house to gain the desert pylon and start working on fast travel. Another mining trip gets me the final piece of platinum ore I need to research, giving me access to platinum armor. I also managed to find a bar statue on the outskirts of a desert biome along a minecart track. I spent some time in the snow biome next, building up a house for the goblin tinkerer that I found underground and promptly left on his own. I'd like a fast travel point as soon as possible in the snow biome, considering ice chests have a lot of really good loot, including the ice skates for the terrace bark crafting tree, and also I'd like to kill some flinxes. I know I just got access to one of the best guns for this part of the game, but I want to be a summoner for the rest of pre-hard mode, and I have a reason for this. Since I'm going to be spending a lot of time with this character, I like to play around with all 4 of the classes, so I'm going to assign one of each of the 4 classes to different sections of the game. Obviously, because the best weapon in the game is a melee weapon, that's reserved for the end game. I already know where I want to play the ranger class, so it's a pick between mage and summoner, and I pick summoner because mage benefits way more from this mode later, from a combination of potion duping and the mana flower, and I don't have that yet. So pre-hard mode is summoner's time to shine. Whilst looking through ice chests, I find the ice skates, and while trying to kill snowflinxes, the Eye of Cthulhu spawns naturally. I quickly take myself back home and desperately try and build a basic arena before the Eye arrives. Once he shows up, it's a pretty easy fight. A combination of max health, platinum armor, and the mini shark shredding his health makes the fight way too easy at this point. He drops his boss bag, which may sound like now I have infinite demonite, however the boss bags require research 3 times instead of just 1. For now my plan is to open them outright, unless they're not helpful to me, so I can get a head start on duplicating them. The only exception to this being if I want to guarantee a drop, but for most bosses I'm just going to open them and finish the collection later down the line. Now that the Goblin Tinkerer has moved into his house, I can grab the Tinkerer's Workshop and the rocket boots, but most importantly of all, this mode helps with the worst part of any Terraria playthrough, the goblins stealing all of your money. Since I have infinite, it's not a problem. I can get weapon and accessory modifiers even really early, and jumping back into the underground, I can finish killing those flinxes and craft the first summoner armor and the first summoner weapon of the playthrough, the flinx fur coat and the flinx staff. Making my way to the jungle now, and I can grab a bunch of stingers, vines, and jungle spores to craft the snapthorn. Now I'm basically as powerful as I can be at this stage of the game, so it's time for some more bosses. I run to the nearby corruption and build a small arena. It's a corrupted desert though, and there's a sandstorm, which makes it very frustrating to build in. It was honestly really annoying, and the worst part of it is, I can change the weather freely with my journey powers. I just forgot they existed. Regardless, I power through anyway. Maybe the extra time spent was helpful, because I managed to somehow get the legs and helmet of the ancient shadow armor set, and as luck would have it, there are the exact 2 pieces that fit around my flinx fur coat, so an even bigger defense boost for the next upcoming fight. After smashing some orbs, the boss is here, and I lead it slowly towards the surface arena. As you would expect, the fight is pretty easy with the loadout. With all the defense I have, I can afford to get hit a bunch of times and be really bad at dodging, and trust me, I can be really bad at dodging. Plus, this is my first fight with the expert mode Eater of Worlds. My only experience with expert was one world, and it was a Crimson world, and to be honest, I kinda prefer this fight to the Brain. Not entirely sure if that's a popular or unpopular opinion though. With my brand new pickaxe from the fight, it's time to dig a elevator and grab some obsidian along the way. Once in the underworld, I can grab a hellforge and craft the obsidian armor. Then I begin grabbing as much hellstone as possible, dying a few times in the process, and building a house in the cavern layer for easy fast travel. Hellstone means I can upgrade my staff to the Imp Star, so now it's time to try and fight Skeletron. When nightfall comes, I foolishly ignore the naturally spawned Blood Moon, and I try to fight him anyway. But all of the random enemies, plus the Blood Moon's increased spawn rate, kicks my ass. So, the next night I go back and try again. Without all the Blood Moon enemies, this fight is much easier, and I managed to take him down with little trouble. I take the time to explore the dungeon, specifically for bones and the mechanic. I managed to grab enough golden keys to research, and that means I can also grab a shadow key while I'm here. I don't particularly need to stop and open every chest afterwards though, because I can fill in the gaps with fishing crates and golden keys. After finding the mechanic, I can move her in for another fast travel point, and then go to the jungle to build some more housing, so I can eventually grab the jungle pylon as well. Now that Skeletron, the Eye, and the Eater have been taken down, there's only one more required boss in the progression of pre-hard mode, the Wall of Flesh. I do the usual long section of the playthrough building a hell bridge. Along the way, I grab a guide voodoo doll, and these only need one to be researched. And once I think the bridge is long enough, it's time to start the fight. But I was wrong about the bridge being long enough. Before a refight, I decided it's time to take on Queen Bee instead. None of her drops are particularly useful, but defeating her allows the Witch Doctor to move in. And the Witch Doctor sells a helpful summoning accessory. Her fight isn't that difficult, and she goes down first try. With that, I return back to Hell and extend the bridge, but as I am doing so, slime starts to fall from the sky, so I guess we're doing King Slime now. This is pretty much only a time waster, considering King Slime is easy even if you fight him before any other boss, meaning he goes down first try. I'm not so lucky with the Wall of Flesh though. Turns out I was too lazy while building the bridge a second time, and I managed to run out of bridge before I finished taking him down, so it's back to building even longer, and then I realised I'm not even using the best weapon. If you played a lot of Terraria before, you might be aware that the Snapthorn isn't the best weapon for this point in the game. I went to the dungeon for bones, and the best whip in the game is made with bones, and the reason I'm not even using it is because I forgot. For some reason, I confused the hook that Skeletron drops with the whip. At least now realising will make the Wall of Flesh a lot easier. Despite a close death at the end, I managed to take him down this time. Now it's time for hard mode. The start of hard mode is the usual. Break some altars and begin the hard mode ore grind. First, I grab a bunch of palladium. The nice thing about duplication is that I can craft each tier of armor with no extra work, making all the drips for the next tier a lot easier. Next on the list is orichalcum, and then finally titanium. Now that it's hard mode, I'd like to pivot to a new class, Ranger. Yes, you've seen it a million times before. I'm going to use the Deadless Stormbow on the mechanical bosses. Unfortunately for me, the naturally generated Hallow went straight through my jungle, making Souls of Light really difficult and annoying to farm. Nevertheless, I power through with only quite a few deaths. And there's one more downside to a Hello Jungle hybrid. I can't get unicorns to spawn. I've seen pixies, so it's probably possible, but I don't have the patience for that, meaning I can't even craft the best arrows at this point in the game. I could just change classes, but I'm stubborn and I've committed to being a ranger for now, so I'll be relying on weaker arrows. Anyway, I spawn in a hallowed mimic and begin the fight. It's not too difficult to take one down, and in just 3 mimics I have the drop I'm looking for. Next, I make my way to the snow biome to grab the ice feather for frozen wings. Using the journey mode powers, I can force a blizzard straight away. This is the first time I really touched these powers in any way, so I want to talk about them really quick. Obviously, I've been researching and duplicating items, so I can't say they're just off limits, but I also can't say that all of the powers are fair game, considering one of them is literally invincibility. So here's how I decided which ones were okay and which ones were not. Time. Simply put, if the power helps me make everything go faster, it's alright to use. This means that the list of unavailable powers are turning off infection spread, plus the obvious rule of no god mode, along with freezing time and putting the enemy spawn rate lower than 1 times. Conversely, speeding up time, altering weather, increasing pickup and placement range, increasing the enemy spawn rate, and increasing the enemy difficulty are all perfectly fine. Got that? Okay. Good. Now I'm killing wyverns for souls of flight to craft the wings. With a few new upgrades, I decided to take on the wall of flesh a few more times for the boss bag, specifically for easier access to all of the class emblems for increased damage. Once I get my hands on the ranger emblem, I begin expanding the Eye of Cthulhu arena I built a while ago, ready for the mechanical bosses. First up is the destroyer. And as usual, kills my entire town. But also as usual, it's not too hard of a boss fight, so it goes down with little issue. After that, I decided to take on the twins, and I'd like to say that they were easy, but they were not. I die after getting caught in the eye fire. The next night I try Skeleton Prime, and die basically the exact same way, by getting stun-locked by the boss and losing half my health. Whilst waiting for another nightfall, I take a break to find the Shimmer for some of the permanent upgrades you can get from there, and luckily that's all I needed, to die. Again. So, more upgrades. First, I farm for cursed flames for cursed arrows. Then I remember that frost armor exists and go back to the snow biome to grab the one frost core I'm missing in order to craft it. And when nightfall comes, I try another Skeleton Prime. And this time I win, and then I try the twins again. And I win that too. Now that the mech bosses are down, I can upgrade to the hallowed armor set, and then go back to the underground jungle for long enough to grab enough chlorophyte armor. Then it's time for the usual life fruit gathering. Luckily, you only need half as many to finish the research, which cuts down the grind dramatically, and it's only a matter of building an arena for the Plantera boss fight, and spawning her in for the first time. The first phase is easy as per usual, but the second phase is when I begin to slip. Hits start creeping in one by one and I go down to the plant. So I go back again and die in basically the same way. Looking back, it's probably the pitifully sized arena, but I'm stubborn so I don't expand it. Instead, I do something arguably harder and remove the background walls. At least that's enough to die the next attempt, in basically the same spot, and then die again, and then die even earlier than the rest of them. After many failed attempts, a solar eclipse and some fishing is all I need to finally overcome the hurdle of the fight. Taking down Plantera and opening her boss bag to reveal the temple key inside. But before fighting Golem, I want to make my own cornered off hallowed biome to address the issue of the jungle hallow mix. And after that I make my way back to the dungeon to use a jungle key I found earlier. The most important thing I'd like to do before Golem is a class shift. Range has run its course and now it's Mage's turn to take center stage. Since one of the best weapons at this point is dropped by the princess, I'll need to get a few more NPCs to move in. Princess always moves in after every other NPC has been obtained. So first I hover around the edge of a spider biome waiting to free the stylist, then I begin working on an overground mushroom biome so the truffle will move in. Before the princess moves in, I decide to also work on getting upgrade armor. A little while longer in the dungeon means I have enough ectoplasm to create the Spectre armor set. There's only one more NPC I need before the princess moves in, the pirate. But before tackling him, I create a little wooden home for the princess's execution using some lava and actuators. Then I grab some slime crowns to spawn in king slimes at the ocean, to quickly farm pirate maps. Once I have enough, I can go defeat pirates, which allows the pirate NPC to move in. And then, when the princess moves in, it's just a simple case of speeding up time, waiting for her to respawn and killing her over and over until she drops the resonance scepter. With my new upgraded power, it's time to take on the jungle temple. Dying is frequent on my way towards Golem's chamber, but there is one upside of using journey mode. It doesn't matter how many times I die in the golem fight, I can infinitely duplicate power cells as long as there are enough in chests to research. The first few times I die, potentially down to the awkward chamber shape, or maybe down to just being bad. However, on my third attempt, everything changes when I realise the power of the Spectre Hood, a variation of the Spectre armor set that gives less defense but heals you slowly. The healing effect is very, very quick, and it makes some of the upcoming fights pretty trivial. Oftentimes, I found the healing outpaced the damage I was being dealt. With this new knowledge, Golem is easy to take down. Taking his altar home with me makes it pretty easy to get enough treasure bags too, netting me the Staff of Earth. I run straight to the dungeon to fight the lunatic Corsus, since he's known to be pretty trivial. Pretty quickly during the fight, I realised his damage output is lower than the amount that the Spectre Hood heals back, so eventually I'd stop trying to dodge altogether. I just need to avoid spawning any phantasm dragons, and it's completely fine. And with that, the penultimate boss of the game is down with barely any trouble. Now it's time for the pillars, everyone's favourite part of the game. I hate these pillars. Luckily, each pillar drops enough of their respective fragments for me to be able to duplicate them freely, and that means we aren't going to be back here to fight these pillars again, right? Once they're done, the final boss spawns. One final showdown between me and the hardest boss in the game. And I get my ass kicked immediately. But it's okay because I have infinite celestial sigils to respawn the boss. Pillars are needed to continue attempts on the boss this way, and now I have pillar weapons while upgrading the rest of my accessories. Before the Moonlord refights, I decide to grab drops from Bone Lee in the dungeon. Next I can farm some truffle worms and beat Duke Fishron with relative ease, enough times to grab all of his drops. An Empress fight right after nets me the soaring insignia for infinite flight. After a quick pit stop to plant a few crimson grass seeds to let an artificial crimson biome spread, it's time to get back to Moonlord attempts. One fight later and he's down, and yet we have a long way to go. Now that the final boss is down, I need to begin working on finishing my build for the rest of the game. We've done Summoner, Ranger and Mage builds so far, so now it's time for Melee, and I think the weapon choice is pretty obvious. The best item in the game, the Zenith. I still need quite a few swords from its crafting tree though. A few more Moonlord fights gets me enough treasure bags for the Meow Meow and the Star Wrath, and then a few more Queen Bee fights gets me the Beekeeper. Surprisingly, the next sword on my list is Copper Short Sword. Copper didn't generate in my world, and the starting tools in this mode are iron, so I pump a bunch of silt into an extractinator. This method allows me to get all of the ore variants not in my world, plus a pet summoning item. The Ember Mosquito is a 1 in 10,000 drop chance from this. Next on the list is the Enchanted Sword, and this one's a little more complicated. I haven't found a shrine in my world, however, the sword will drop from rare fishing crates, so it's time to start working on fishing quests slowly in the background. Since we'll have to come back to the Enchanted Sword, I decide to get the sword from the Pumpkin Moon event, but it's not Halloween and I need pumpkins, so I need to convert cacti using the shimmer. And the tunnel I dug all the way down to the shimmer has been passed through multiple times. Did you see it? Right there, bathed in the light of the Stardust Dragon, clear as day, and I missed it. Luckily, after a failed pumpkin moon, I finally noticed it while going down to shimmer some fishing accessories, and I can tick Enchanted Sword off the list. Up next is the Terror Blade, a huge crafting recipe in which I have every ingredient except the Broken Hero Sword. So it's only a matter of doing one Eclipse before I have the Terror Blade in my arsenal. Right afterwards, I do some Plantera refights to get the Seedler, another sword down, and the Pumpkin Moon leads to another failure, but just one Martian Madness gets me the Influx Waver I need. It's just one more Pumpkin Moon attempt until I get everything I need, and finally, the most powerful weapon in the game is in my hands. Now that I have everything I could ever need, it's time to craft. I'm going to be stopping a lot during this playthrough just to craft away. I'm not going to bore you with all the footage, but if you ever feel like attempting this yourself, just know a not so insignificant portion of items are just different armors and toolsets for each of the bars or woods and random furniture sets. And it can genuinely take a while to grab all the materials and just sit there and go through and craft. In some ways this is great. The list of items you need looks way more daunting than it is, but at the same time, it's a lot of wiki scrolling to figure out how to craft random obscure items, especially when they need a very specific crafting station and sometimes even ectomis at the same time. Regardless, I need to build an underground farm next. I spent quite a lot of time mining out and constructing it, since there are many unique drops for every underground biome, including the corrupted versions of the ice and desert biomes. The first target biome is the Aloe, since right now I'd like to get the Rod of Discord. Usually farming like this takes quite a while, but we can speed it up with 10 times mob spawns from the journey powers. Once obtained, throwing into some shimmer gains us the ability to freely teleport to nearby places using the Rod of Harmony. I then decide to tackle some of the boss drops I don't have yet. First I fight the mechanical bosses 3 times each to grab each of their respective boss bags. Then I move on to the Eater of Worlds, taking it down swiftly 3 times. Deiclops is up next, and a few kills later I have all her drops. Then it's time to refight the Empress of Light. 2 fights and 1 very close call with the time switching back to day is enough to grab her bags. I take a break from bosses to work on golf score. The golfer will sell increasingly rare items the higher your golf score is. Golf score is cumulative and essentially boils down to needing the ball to go a long distance with as few strokes as possible. I know an easy method to get around this though. Using a elevator with a T at the top and golf holes at the bottom, you can hit the ball straight down the elevator and it should fall straight down into the holes below. It only takes a few shots to get a high enough golf score for the golfer's items. Before bosses are back on the menu, I set up a little slime statue farm to quickly grab the slime staff. Then it's time to kill the Brain of Cthulhu in our newly spread Crimson biome to attain his drops. I decided to take on Betsy next. First doing 1 round of the Old One's army to grab enough Defender medals to buy everything from the Tavern Keep, and then 2 more for the rest of her bags. After spending some time gathering all of the uncraftable dungeon and obsidian furniture in my world, I gather everything from the Underground Crimson using the Underground Farm, including all of the banners available. The biome mimics are a bit of a pain, but thankfully their banners only require 25 kills. Then I do the same for the ice biome, grabbing all of the drops and banners from there. A quick pit stop at the Hallowed to fight Queen Slime a few times nets me another boss bag completion. Next I decide to work on biome fishing crates for a while. I've been fishing in the background here and there, but now that I have a lot of the fishing upgrades from Angler, it's time to really delve deep into the mechanic. First I grab bramble crates from the jungle, then seaside crates from the ocean, mirage crates from desert, thematic crates from the crimson, boreal crates from the snow, defile crates from the corruption, divine crates from the hallow, azure crates from the sky, and stockade crates from the dungeon, with a break in the middle to farm the hallowed ice biome. And then it's just a matter of lava fishing to grab the final crates, hellstone crates. Next on the list are the Christmas exclusive items, which are actually kind of long-winded to obtain without just setting the date and time of your PC. First I defeat the Frost Moon event to unlock Christmas items for an in-game day, then farm presents to get the Snow Globe, to then spawn in and beat the Frost Legion, which is the spawn requirement for the Santa Claus NPC. I took too long and Santa needs it to be the Christmas season, so I have to refight the Frost Moon to get another day of Christmas so Santa can move in. At least I got to decorate a cute little Christmas tree afterwards. Then I go back into the underground farm to finish off the Hallowed Desert drops. And then it's time for world hopping. Since not all items are available in one world, today's mission is the uncraftable dungeon furniture. My world's dungeon is blue, but there are also green and pink variations, both of which we need to loot to grab their respective furniture sets. The first new dungeon I come across is a pink variant, and I make sure to grab as much furniture as I can find, including the decorative banners and the paintings. I also take a chance to use the crimson key I found in the underground farm, as only the biome chest matching your world evil will spawn in each world, so I speedrun the necessary bosses and go grab the loot from the crimson chest before moving on to the next world. This next dungeon is also pink, so I use it to fill in the gaps that I have in the furniture set. It takes a couple more worlds to finally find a green variant, grabbing as much as I can from there. This world also contains Desert Pyramid, which I need as well, so I make sure to get whatever is in the chest. The rest of the pyramid loot can be shimmered into each other. It takes 3 full green variants to actually grab all the furniture, but after a while I have it all, minus the paintings. We'll put a pin in that because paintings will be irrelevant in a little while. We're not done with world hopping just yet because there's one more dungeon related item I want to get. It's probably one that you saw this video and thought about immediately, the bone key. That means we need to defeat the dungeon guardian without him one-shotting us. My plan to do this is to hook up 2 teleporters and bait him in looping back and forth. Honestly, the hardest part of this was getting out of the dungeon quick enough and to the platform without getting immediately murked by the guardian. After quite a few deaths, I finally get him to the platform and his health will be slowly brought down by bees. It takes a full 10 minutes to whittle him down, but once he is dead, I have one of the most difficult to obtain items in the game. I begin working on filling in some of the gaps in my bestiary next, throwing Val and Vicious powder on bunnies, penguins and goldfish for the corrupt and vicious versions, making sure to grab all of the banners they drop. The Pigron statue will fill in the other Pigron variants that I'm missing without having to make 3 types of ice biome. Then it's time to run around in my cabin town to grab all of the gem bunnies and squirrels, catching one of each to be able to research them all. Then it's back to the underground farm to finish up the drops from the corrupt desert and a quick spray of the Clantaminator for the uncorrupted desert enemies. Next I want to start working on the extremely long list of events with exclusive drops, plus I'd like to make a dent in the enemy banners you get for killing 50 of each enemy. Starting with the Goblin Army, it takes me a total of 9 Goblin Armies to get the Goblin Warlock banner. Annoyingly, it takes a while for the Goblin Army to actually arrive once spawned, so in the middle of attempts I take to killing corrupt mimics for that banner. Half an hour later and I have everything. Honestly, that length of time was a lengthy but manageable number for one event. It's a shame the next one will take triple that time. The Old One's Army's event that I don't particularly care for either way, but I guess guess it's fine. However, for some reason, the banners take a lot more than usual 50 kills. I'm talking multiple 100s and 200s, with the Ethereum Goblin Bomber being 500 and the Ethereum Goblin being 1000. And yeah, they do spawn a lot in the event, more than enemies regularly do I guess, but some of these were insanely grindy and I don't know why, especially the Kobold Glider. Despite being a 100 kill banner, this one took me by far the longest. I think it's because they explode when they make contact with the Eternia crystal, and I was just missing them flying by me, but oh my god, they were such a pain. Nevertheless, the task is finished and I want to take on the pirates next, but the game has other plans and spawns in the solar eclipse as the pirates arrive, so I guess we're doing the solar eclipse now. Except I'm stubborn, so I keep spawning in pirates anyway, doing a strange mishmash of pirate and eclipse at the same time for a while. I also spend some eclipse time placing down antlion eggs for the antlion lava banner. A total of 7 pirate invasion nets me all the drops, mostly due to the 0.2 drop chance of every piece of the 2 vanity set. Then doing only a couple of frost legions is enough to finish that event. The only drops are banners and snow blocks. For tackling more events, I farm enough shimmer slimes to get that banner too. Then in the underground farm, I can grab everything I need from the underground jungle, and then I beeline to the living tree to kill a bunch of gnomes for that banner. Then it's back to world hopping once again. There are 6 decorative banners exclusive to the underworld, but only 3 will spawn per world. It's not until my 4th attempt that I get the final one I need. Returning back home, I make my way to the skies to defeat enough wyverns for the wyvern banner. A trip to the spider's nest give me the wall creeper and the black recluse banners, then a quick stop in the mushroom biome for all of the underground mushroom banners, except one, the spore skeleton. I don't know why, but this one enemy took me 45 minutes to get the banner for. It's meant to be common, it's a 1-star enemy, but it took me so long to get the banner for it, and I have no idea why. I was in the thousands for all of the other common enemies in the biome, and it took me 40 more minutes than all of the rest to finish the spore skeletons. If anybody knows why this happens, please enlighten me because I have no idea. Regardless, it's time to move on to the rainbow slime, which only takes me about 5 minutes to get the banner for, then to the desert for the vulture and antlion banners. Making a graveyard next allows me to obtain banners for the raven, the groom, the bride, ghost, and hopping jack, and an eclipse spawn right after to grab the final few things I'm missing from there. After that, the snow biome is where I can find the banners for the ice, elemental, and wolf, plus a chance to get all parts of the snow armor set from frozen zombies. The blood feeder and blood jelly banners come from a trip to the crimson biome. I then take advantage of a natural blood moon spawn to work on the long list of blood moon fish enemies and their banners. These enemies will take a while though, and I won't finish their banners for many hours, considering the short time span and slow enemy spawn. For now though, I'm going to move on to the desert, specifically during a sandstorm. This is for the sand shark, dune splicer, and sand elemental banners. Running back and forth across the ocean floor is up next for the shark, crab, pink jellyfish, sea snail, squid banners. Afterwards I decide to tackle the granite and marble biome enemies for their banners, with Medusa taking by far the longest, but still a relatively short grind nonetheless. Then it's to the underworld to grab all of that biome's respective banners. I go back to the event grind after that. Martian Madness is on the menu and I grab all of the banners from that event. The next event is the pillars. It takes longer than I'd like for an event that sucks balls, but it goes pretty smoothly. Then it's back to biomes with the surface jungle for the only banner I'm missing, the Snatcher banner. Some time later, it's mine. The next banners on my list are 2 that I was honestly surprised to learn existed in the first place. For some reason, the cultists that you kill to spawn the lunatic cultists have banners, separate ones for each of the variations too. It's actually kind of annoying to be honest. They take a full in-game day to respawn if you kill them all, or you can kill only 2 of them, disconnect and reconnect to the world, and all 4 will respawn instantly. And sometimes that doesn't even work. Reloading the world instead removes all 4 and still requires an in-game day. Either way, it's a pretty lengthy process for 2 enemies you don't exactly need banners for. Nevertheless, I trudge on until the 2 banners are in my hands. Afterwards, I do a round of the pumpkin moon, specifically to fill in some of the Halloween enemy variations I'm missing from my bestiary. Once those are filled in, I can head straight to the snow biome to kill a bunch of ice golems for that banner. Then it's back to the eclipse. I know I said I grabbed everything from the eclipse earlier, but it turns out I accidentally trashed my Mothran banner, so it's back to killing another 25 Mothran to re-obtain it. Since it's nighttime, I kill my Clothier and spawn Skeletron in to finally finish his boss bag, and then the next night it's more Frost Moon, and in the day an artificial Crimson Desert is created, and I wait around for a Sandstorm to brew. Switching the biome into a Corrupted and Hallowed variant allows me to get each of the Sand Shark variants, finally completing the bestiary for the Universal Pylon. Then I move on to something I thought would be much more tedious than it actually was, music boxes. There is a music box for all of the music in the game. Obtaining them is simple. Equip the music box as an accessory while the music track you desire to record is playing, except the Terraria wiki states that it can take up to 10 minutes to record each track. I was not excited for this part of the game upon hearing that, thinking that I would have to wait forever to get all of them. But no, they all basically immediately recorded the music, thank god. Now I get to go on a nice little world tour, recording the music tracks one by one, starting with Town Day and finishing fittingly with Lunar Boss. Once all the regular tracks are done, it's time for the otherworldly tracks. When they are done, I have every standard music box, minus the slime ring, but that's just the case of waiting until it appears and grabbing the box then. Up next is all the boss trophies that I don't currently have. First up is Golem, with 12 fights for the trophy, 9 fights with Queen Slime, 4 Empress fights, 15 Eye of Cthulhu's, 7 Destroyers, 2 Skeletron Primes, 11 Twins, 2 Eaters of Worlds, 4 Duke Fishrons, 1 Brain of Cthulhu, 3 Deerclops and 14 Queen Bees. All in all, not too many insanely high numbers for a 1 in 10 drop chance. It'd be a shame if 2 of the most annoying bosses to spawn had the highest amount of attempts. Unrelated, but I did over 20 attempts of Plantera before having to give up, put it on the list of stuff to do later because I ran out of bulbs to break. In the meantime, I explore the Get Fixed Boy World Seed for the red potion and then speedrun through the bosses for both the Mech Spawn item and Waffles Iron. Back at home, I work on some more of the Blood Moon fishing enemies. Once day hits, it's time for kites. Bone Serpent, Blue Jellyfish, Pink Jellyfish and Shark are up first. And then I spend some time breaking a bunch of windy balloons for all of those kite variations. Night rolls around once more, and it's back to Blood Moon fishing. At this point though, I'm mostly just getting the Dread Nautilus to spawn and then waiting patiently for it to spawn in the Blood Squid minions, usually accidentally killing the Dread Nautilus in the process. When day hits again, I finish the kite collection and waste some more time killing Medusas from the Medusa head, and then finally it's time to return to the Plantera trophy. I feel like I wanted the jungle endlessly, searching for bulbs and being let down when the trophy did not drop, but finally it drops. After 33 total attempts, which is an almost 97% chance of me getting it by that point. Still, I'm thankful that it ended eventually. Before another large-scale project, I take some time to build a villager exterminator, if you will. Whenever there is downtime, I will be killing the NPCs to get all of the drops I'm missing from them. And the next large-scale project is paintings. I spent a very long time just digging tunnels in brand new worlds, hoping to find a house with a new painting in it. In total, the missing underground cabin paintings took me over 2 hours to complete, but that's boring, so let's look at a much more interesting item, the dirtiest block. This might be the rarest item in the entire game. A large world will only have 9 of them. 9 random dirt blocks, and every large world will be turned into a pet, and it looks like a dirt block. Not the most inspiring design for a very rare item. Nevertheless, it's time to dig. I carve out the earth a little bit at a time, until finally the dirt block emerges. This is what the world looked like after the carving. Honestly, much less damage than I expected. Before returning home, I must go looking for dungeon paintings. It takes me over an extra hour to find all of them, and some of them are pretty rare. I would argue that this is probably the most tedious part, since you can't exactly guarantee that a new painting will be present in every world, and you do have to search the whole dungeon every time, even if there's nothing new. Plus, creating a new world takes a bit of time. Afterwards, I work on another tedious grind. Fishing quests and a little extra attention to fishing has been enough to grab the random fish that you can obtain from different areas. This one is different, the Joja Cola. You need 5 Joja Colas, and they have a 1 in 8 chance to replace trash when fishing. That means you need a relatively low fishing power, elongating the time it takes to get to catch. This takes a little bit too long for what should be a very simple task. You just wait for a bite, 2 mouse clicks, and then wait for another bite. But after a while, I do finally get it, making sure to purify it at the Dryad. Now that a couple of longer grinds are over, let's work on something fun and silly. The Terragrim is a rare weapon that has a 2% chance to drop from an enchanted sword shrine. However, that sounds like a really long method, so instead, I'll just buy it from the princess in the Get Fixed Boy world during a blood moon. All you have to do is rush through the game, hitting all of the other NPC spawn requirements along the way, including a beeline to the surface to make a mushroom biome for the truffle, plus searching for all of the bound, sleeping, or just randomly hanging out NPCs found underground. When she moves in, the Terragrim has been attained. And then something pretty chill is up next, fruit. I've been world hopping to new worlds to quickly generate a bunch of trees to shake, and get to cutting a bunch of them down until I have all of the fruits from each of the tree types, using the Clentaminator to make hollow biomes without having to beat the wall of flesh again. On this world hopping adventure, I take the opportunity to work on the travelling merchant items. Some of these are locked behind later game progression, but I'm trying to get an item that is available from day one, the Angel Halo, which is the rarest item the travelling merchant can sell. I'm also looking for the pre-hard mode exclusive Grey Sapinator, since I didn't pick it up earlier. I managed to get the Grey Sapinator eventually, but more importantly, during this time a gold ladybug spawned. I already have the more common golden critters, but this is the first truly rare one I've found. You need 3 of them to research. Fortunately, there is a workaround. Critter cages only need 1 to be researched, and then you can simply duplicate and decraft them in Shimmer to get more gold critters. And then a little while later, I finally get my hands on the Angel Halo, so finally I can return home, and then make the painter homesick over and over again by moving him into all of the different biomes to grab every one of his biome exclusive painting. Then it's a trip down to the cavern for the Rune Wizard and Tim Banners, followed by my first attempt at farming some of the gold critters. I start with a dragonfly, building up walls around a pond to stop enemies from getting in to kill all the dragonflies. I thought this would take quite a while, but the gold dragonfly spawns almost immediately. After that I move on to the gold grasshopper, which I will attempt to retrieve using a long grass bridge. I'll need to wait for the grass to regrow between attempts though, so for now it's time to grab the seahorse. I built an underwater house using bubbles for the increased critter spawns near towns. Before diving in, I take advantage of the blood moon that started, because oh boy do I love my blood moon fishing. Back to the seahorses. The spawn rate is pretty low, and I don't know how to fix that, but thankfully it doesn't take very long for the golden boy to appear. The gold water strider is next. Despite the fact that I rarely ever see this critter in regular gameplay, this wasn't that bad of a gold critter to farm at all. I start by digging a shallow but lengthy pond in the desert, moving the NPCs nearer for the boosted critter spawns. After that it's just a case of running back and forth until the desired water strider spawns. The same method can be used in the jungle for the gold frog, which spawns very quickly for me. The next gold critter is not a similar story, the gold mouse. This critter is not boosted by nearby towns, which makes it much harder to farm. Plus it spawns underground, which means a lot of enemies roaming about, and the RNG gods were not particularly kind in making it spawn quickly. After digging out a huge spawn area for the mice, it took me just over an hour to finally grab the mouse I was looking for. Stepping away from gold critters now, my next target is the Terra Prisma, a weapon obtained from the Empress of Light during daytime, where she one-shots you. It shouldn't be too much of a challenge with endgame gear, but even though my damage output looks like this, I still die multiple times. Regardless, the fight is not too difficult and I do manage to take her down eventually. We're in the home stretch now and I begin cycling back and forth between doing attempts for the Lunatic Cultist trophy and finishing the Frost Moon in the downtime. The Lunatic Cultist is a pain since I have to fully complete the pillars every failed attempt. Luckily I get the win of finishing the NPC drops in the middle of these grinds. Between my other tasks, I get a good day for butterfly spawns and spend the day trying to catch a gold butterfly but to no avail. Then another good day, but again, no dice. Then a third, still no luck. My current list of things that I'm switching between looks like this for quite a while. Frost Moon, pillars, blood moon fishing, and grasshopper farming, with butterfly catching sprinkled in when the game hands me a decent butterfly day. And once a fourth day comes, nothing happens. But finally, the right day appears and the butterfly spawns in only an in-game half an hour into the day, which is a beautiful sight to see when you've been spending full days just catching butterflies over and over. Not long after, I also managed to finally finish the Frost Moon drops, after multiple nights of hacking away at them. The Frost Moon is replaced by the Pumpkin Moon in my to-do list, but that one takes only 2 more attempts to finish those drops, so it barely lasts. Now that I'm feeling that Halloween spirit, why don't we go for the 2 Halloween exclusive weapons? The definitive list of enemies that these weapons drop from is actually kind of hard to find, considering they change based on world difficulty and the number of bosses that you've defeated. Instead of figuring it out myself, I hop onto a new world, set my computer's date and time to Halloween, and pray to the heavens that King Slime's minions have the ability to drop the weapons. It takes over an hour of running across the world and killing King Slimes, but eventually the weapons both drop. Now that I'm home once again, it's time to finish off all of the Angler Quest rewards and quest fish. There's only a handful left, so I use my time turning powers to keep on resetting a new day to morning. Then I give him the fish until all rewards are obtained. For the rest of the quest fish themselves, all I need to do is wait for him to ask for the ones I'm missing, and then run off to obtain them. Once I have them all, I have to make a quick trip to a Crimson World for the Crimson Quest fish. Upon returning back home and going for another stroll down my grasshopper bridge, I finally get the gold grasshopper to appear, meaning I now have every single gold critter in my arsenal. And then another round of travelling merchant farming finally finishes off all of the travelling merchant items, specifically all the ones locked to later progression in the game. For the final stretch, I unfortunately get left with the tail end of one of the longest grinds I've been doing. The Lunatic Cultist drops are just not dropping at all, and every time I take him down, I have to go back and do the pillars once again, and I genuinely hate the pillars. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to make an event where all of the enemies do damage in triple digits, but also be an event that uses enemy spam. Regardless, this took 21 attempts, not for the rarer drop of the trophy, but for the Cultist Mask, which is a 14.29% drop, and I was 96% likely to have gotten it by that point, so I got majorly unlucky with the most difficult to respawn boss in the game. Luckily, it's over now, and it's time to move on to the home stretch, Master Mode. This is my first time touching Master Mode ever, and my first time ever obtaining any of the Master Mode drops. To celebrate the number of items that we've collected, I'm going to be doing a sort of boss rush to finish up the playthrough. I do King Slime into the Eye of Cthulhu, into the Eater of Worlds, into the Brain of Cthulhu, and then the Queen Bee, then Skeletron, Deerclops, the Wall of Flesh, Pumpkin Moon, Frost Moon, Pirate Evasion, the Old One's Army, the Martian Madness, into Queen Slime, into the Twins, the Destroyer, Skeletron Prime, Plantera, Golem, Empress of Light, Duke Fishron, into the Lunatic Cultist. But wait, the Master Mode drops aren't all guaranteed. It would be a shame if I added another 9 Lunatic Cultist and pillar attempts. I think this game wanted to taunt me. I was trying to do one final hurrah to the journey, and yet it can still torment me. How nice. But once it's done, it's only the Moon Lord left. It's been long, it's been tumultuous, but finally I have the final item in my hands. Except for the unobtainable items, which I cheated in. Okay, bye!